right. Again, welcome to Inner Fitness. The topic today is healing. So as usual, we're going to start with a reflection. Seated comfortably, so there's no tension in the body. I take my thoughts inwards. And reflect on the experience of well-being. Not just physical well-being, or even mental or emotional, but deep well-being. And what the signs of deep well-being might be. Not to just think of the words in answer to that question, but the feeling of deep well-being. What do I think that feels like? And extending that feeling, not just deep well-being within myself, but in relationships and globally throughout the world. What that might look and feel like. And holding that feeling, I'm coming back into sound. Om Shanti. So right from the get-go, we are recording, but I would love your input. And I can always pause the recording. I have that power here to see if we can get you to respond either by chat, or if you want to talk, then I'm happy to pause, or if you're okay with your voice being recorded. But what do you feel that deep well-being would feel like first, just within the self? What would that healthy feeling be like? Anything to share? And just tell me to pause if you want me to. Jackie, do you want me to pause recording?
Oh, that's fine. A real feeling.
Except I cannot. Just hang on. Sorry. No. Just hang on. Oh, this is technical. Far beyond my acumen. Go ahead, Jackie.
A real feeling of peace, contentment, and happiness. So I think first it was a feeling of contentment. So if other things don't matter, there's nothing else that matters, which really brought a sense of peace, and then happiness, and that moving forward with that would be the real well-being, to be able to move forward with those feelings.
Beautiful. Did that extend for you in any way into healthy relationships, well-being in relationships, or in the world, what that might look like, given, let's say, all individuals had that state? What would relationships be like?
They would be much better, because all the things that we think matter that really don't matter wouldn't come into play, because those things that don't matter seem to be what all the discontent and disagreement is about in any event.
Yeah, as you were sharing contentment, you have to
World and that
think
relationship level. Sorry.
about the world. No, go ahead, the world level.
Yes, the world level and relationship level, that if we can all pause to realize that those other things that we are in disagreement about don't actually matter, then that sense of peace will continue.
Does anyone else want to share? Thank you, Jackie. Anyone else want to share?
I think well-being deeply inside there is a harmony in your within yourself, in your thoughts, and then with your body or anything, your interaction or relationship. There is a, yeah, definitely there's a peaceful or some, kind of that, contentment is a big piece, and then a lot of harmony that whenever, whatever you are doing, you really feel that it's going along quite well. It's okay. Everything is fine. That kind of feeling that, wellness from within, that you enjoy, kind of that you have that respect for the self and all that comes up with that wellness and respect for others.
So relationships would be about respect for others because of that wellness in the self. Lovely. Thank you, Jima. Did you want to say what the global situation would be like with well-being, Jima Ben? What would it be like in the world? What's a healthy world look like?
So it's starting with myself. If everyone is well from within, so the relationship, how we interact with each other, it will be completely different, really in a harmony. Unity would be more visible, and it would be more, more hope for each other, and then more respect. So everything starts from the self, from within.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Raj or Nora, is there anything you'd like to add? I know all the good stuff has sort of been taken, but if there's anything you'd like to add. Go ahead.
Well, I guess it would be the Om Shanti first. I think the world would be more peaceful. All the violence and all the chaos we see in the world, if everybody is well, then there's no need to commit crimes or make other people hurt or cause more pain in this world. So I guess this is the sign of unwellness in the world, that, whatever all the pain people are causing to others is due to that, because they are painful themselves, like they're in pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And anything else to add? Oh yes, there's all these knobbies. All right, I don't know how high this is supposed to go. Higher? That's really hot. Instead, that's why we can share. In the world, healthy world, they share.
Oh, Shanti. I know that word seems to be a very vague word, but the word wholesome always comes up for me. You don't, because of this feeling. And actually, when I hear the word well, I think of that physical well. So there's actually a feeling of such a deep reserve internally. And so then there was that feeling of not feeling affected at all, actually, and stable. So when I was thinking about on a global level, what that would look like, because of what the relationships would look like, everyone would feel very independent. Yeah, there's just no taking. That's where that harmony and unity would be. Everyone would be comfortable being unique, and there would just be no comparison, no misunderstanding. Shanti.
Lovely. So as Raj was pointing out, the signs of not being well, and she already mentioned some, the violence, the conflict, the mistrust, really. And I know it's not pleasant to reflect on, so we won't stay here long, but what does spiritual dis-ease or unhealthy look like? What does spiritual dis-ease look like? And I know you're going to have to go into theoretical because, of course, none of you are in that place, but theoretically, what does spiritual dis-ease look like? Anyone have thoughts? Nora said anything negative. Oh, anything wasteful, anything negative. You already heard about violence.
I was just going to say, and not taking ownership, just always putting the responsibility outward, looking outward for reasons, for blame, for everything that's there's so, and then in turn that's causing more and more unrest in the soul because there's always blaming other things, other people, their relationships.
So we're going to come back to that because that's kind of where this all begins. So we'll come back to what Jackie just shared. Jima, is there anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, main thing is you are not contented, and then always, trying to restlessness and unworthy feeling, and probably a lot of comparison, and with others, and or judgmental about self and as well as about others. So many all those things which makes the soul restless and unworthy, and all those like not at ease, not very heavy, and all those symptoms.
Yeah. It's really, first off, in both sides of the sharing, as we get into spiritual dis-ease or health, you'll notice it was always just virtues, qualities. It was just a conversation on qualities when we're talking about the feeling. And there is these other forms of emotional, mental, and starting, physical is a very gross form of disease, and more physicians are starting to acknowledge that physical disease starts with dis-ease. And even something as simple as breaking a leg, you'll say, how can that have a spiritual connection? But when we look at spirituality, we start to realize how that broken leg happened. So it's always quite connected to the spiritual well-being. Starting with the physical and what Jackie had shared, there's something I always found really interesting with the physical body, particularly around something like a misalignment or an overuse injury. When something acute happens, that's is still spiritual, but we're just talking more about maybe over a period of time, misalignment, overuse type injuries, physically imbalances. And they can go on for a while. They're actually happening for a while, but one is not aware that is there. So they just keep going in the same way. They just keep operating in the same way, in that misaligned state, imbalance, which is contributing to, is part of overuse, not aware really of what they're doing until an injury happens. And then they might start to notice, oh, okay, it's due to an imbalance or overuse. But I know souls who still, even though they're told point blank, this is due to you doing it this way, they just keep going at it. It's kind of like they're addicted to operating in that way. I'm remembering the story I think I've shared before of one of the young fitness goers who became an expectant mother. And and this is usually the case, we can even often see it quite clearly in another person and not in ourselves. So we could see that there was an alignment issue in that soul, the way that they were going about physical fitness, but they're also very strong. So they could get away with it for quite a while. But then when they were expecting, and of course, when you're expecting, there's a lot of changes that happen in the body. And they woke up one night with intense, acute back pain. And certainly someone might just, write it off to the pregnancy because it's not uncommon. They, I think, had to go to emergency. It was quite bad, but they landed up with their doctor just to follow up. And their doctor, and they said, "Is it the pregnancy?" They said, "Well, not really. I mean, the pregnancy might have been the straw that, forgive the pun, broke the camel's back. But quite frankly, it's been building up over a while. You know, it's been an alignment issue over a while, and then it just came to light with this extra strain. And literally, that soul did not in any way change what they're doing, despite receiving that information. Now, the reason I say that's connected to what Jackie shared is that we very often feel pain or sorrow spiritually. We feel hurt, or we feel, you know, all sorts of very deep sort of feelings within the soul, as we say, our heart. And we so often misdiagnose it. You know, we don't notice what's actually going on. We don't realize it's about my own alignment or imbalance. We keep saying, I am a victim of something out there. You know, a bit like they wanted to say it's the pregnancy or whatever they said. It's like, no, actually, it's something that you're doing, and then something comes along and hits that button and activates that feeling for you, that hurt or that pain or that reaction. But it's actually something within you that you're doing. And spiritual well-being kind of has to start there, to acknowledge that there's something within me that needs to be addressed when we talk to spiritual well-being, that it can't always be about, okay, well, that person hurt me, or that politician's doing this, or that situation's like, I will never be able actually to honestly embark on a journey of spiritual well-being if I keep misdiagnosing the cause of my pain, which happens a lot in physicality and can happen in other realms as well, mental and emotional. But to really have to look at, I've seen souls who have such alignment issues physically, they need to get surgery done, a joint replacement, and then they come back and do the old thing. So the odds are very high that that operation will not be sustainable, because again, they're doing the same thing they did before. So this sort of external fix that we like to do when something feels off, when it's acute, yeah, we usually need an external fix, but eventually I have to look at the true genesis, the true cause. So spiritual well-being suggests, and we call the Raj Yoga study a hospital come university. So it's definitely a spiritual practice to heal the self as a spiritual being, but it's going to involve some understandings as well. And the main thing I need to understand to get the whole thing off the ground is that the cause of my pain or sorrow is within the self. And that doesn't mean I'm a horrible person. It's actually meant to empower us. Then I realize, okay, great. Then I need to do some inner work, which is within my hands, because I can't really necessarily control things out there. And I find it one of the most heartbreaking things to see, which we're seeing massively on the globe right now, of consistently blaming things out there. Things out there have to be changed or fixed. And souls are very frustrated because they don't have that control to do it. Whereas spiritual well-being says, okay, I've actually created what's going on out there, the unhealthy things happening out there. I need to look at the self. And there were two words. I mean, you really hit the biggies when you talked about spiritual well-being. Absolutely. The peace, the contentment, the unity, the harmony, the self-respect. And I loved, that Raj mentioned the violence, because the non-violence is a huge part of being healthy. Violence is not possible when we are healthy. And what's the mother of all of that? What creates all of those different things? We use the word pure. So health and pure really, really go together in spirituality. And often when we go into a major supermarket chain here in Canada, in Australia, in Western Canada, I don't know if it's in the East, but I like how they say, and I know Nora brought that word up, they have pure and wholesome. And that just sounds so healthy whenever I see it, pure and wholesome, right? Really, really healthy. And purity has 3 aspects. When we say pure is healthy, when we start to break it down, it really starts to match up what many of you have brought forward. Breaking down purity, first off, that there isn't some foreign bodies, right? So pure means there's nothing foreign mixed in its most basic definition. And that's a really healthy state. Whenever we say there's infection or foreign bodies, right? This usually means things are not healthy. But what does that feel like, that state of being pure? And one of them, big one, is free from desires. That contentment. Contentment does not mean I have everything I need, because that will never happen. Right? As long as I keep wanting things and think that I'll get to a point when I'll just get everything I want, that you will always want more. Right? You'll get the iPhone, I wanted the iPhone, and then the next version comes and I want that one. Like, it never stops if I think contentment is just about getting all the things I want. Contentment is being free from wanting anything, right? So freedom from desires because of being whole, full, complete. I have everything I need within myself. So the state of being free from desires, this freedom from desires causes so much pain and damage within the self. And I'm sure you can sort out how much it damages relationships. When I thought of relationships, healthy relationships, that real expectations is so damaging within relationships. And when we say there should not be expectations, people think, well, what's going on? Is there anything going on? And the fact that we think that's the only thing that holds a relationship together is expectation. So this wanting the other person to be a certain way. Meanwhile, they are wanting you to be a certain way. So we use the example of 2 empty boxes coming together, hoping they'll fill each other up. It's an impossible situation. And it leads to just frustration and conflict and passive aggression, which should not be confused with peace. And then, of course, this world, it's, I was on a call the other day, and it goes so deep, this sense of mindness and what I want. And when it goes to the collective level, global countries, and in this call, we had a bunch of different organizations. And I've been in this situation before because of working with an organization that had multiple branches. And the department I was in did not belong. It was like I wouldn't call it the United Nations, but that feeling of I do not belong to any specific branch. I belong to all the branches. So that was the department that I was in. So whenever we approached anything, our vision was always about all of the branches together, the entire organization. But whenever we came to meetings and we had representatives from each branch, you could tell they were only thinking about their own branch and what would make their own branch better. So when they came to the table, their agenda was what I want for my branch. And sometimes they were very overt about it. They'd come to me and say, okay, this is what I want, and make sure you do not share it with any other branch. And I thought, okay, but aren't we one big happy family? One big organization? Like, won't the little children suffer if we don't share? So it's always kind of having to educate them, which is very difficult. when you're dealing with management to tactfully educate them that they should really share. So imagining a world where there's no borders or boundaries, as you, if you will, one big country. For administrative purposes, being very sensitive to the needs, if you will. It's hot there, it's cold there. One wants air conditioning, the other wants heat, that's fine. But to have that vision of, what do you need? I have it, I can give it to you. Nora's going to share something, but you need, okay, a question. Yeah, she's asking, would secrets be a sign of unhealthiness? Now, I really like this question because, there's two different ways to understand this term secrets, and it's connected to one of the qualities of purity. Because one of the arts, or kalas, the deities are said to be 16 celestial degrees complete, these highest beings. And one of their arts, when we say 16 celestial degrees, one of these arts or degrees is the art of keeping secrets. Now, the reason I remember that one is because I find it so fascinating. The art of keeping secrets. So depends how we're using the word secrets. If I'm using it to protect myself and my stuff, mine, yes, it leads to some problems. But if I'm using it to protect your honor, right? If it's out of that respect, right? So I'm not going to share something that will make you feel uncomfortable or look lesser in front of other people. That's dishonoring, right? The art of keeping secrets, it's a beautiful art. And it's not about lying or withholding. It's based on that pure feeling of respect. We have very odd ideas of honesty. We use the word honesty in a very hurtful way, right? Because ego is driving it. So we will make ourselves look lesser than, make others look lesser than, using this word honesty. So it's another whole big conversation. But in terms of this, I think you're talking about when I'm using it to, it's part of the boundaries and the borders, situation. So again, we say purity because purity within, we'll come back to it because it's a very healthy state, makes me feel sensitive, allows me to be sensitive to what is really, really elevated and benevolent. So this idea of being free from desires because of being so full, not because I'm an ascetic who's denying myself, an ascetic, that wasn't right, ascetic who's denying myself of all sorts of things. Maybe I am an ascetic, I don't know. A good looking ascetic, but denying myself. No, not for that reason, because I'm so full, abundant within. And I want you, sometimes we use the word bliss, to think about those moments when you're just like, I'm good. I really don't need anything. And you'll notice at those moments, there's a natural outward flowing, right? You want to help people, you want to cooperate. With me, it's always the same. I'll be driving in that blissed out state. And if I see anyone walking on the sidewalk who looks in any way burdened, it's so hard for me not to stop the car and want to pick them up and take them wherever they need to go. Right? Doesn't even matter if I'm supposed to be going somewhere. It's like, it just creates this fullness that allows us, we just want to bestow, to give, and not even on a physical level, in our heart, in our feelings, attitude, vision, bestowing, because we're so full. So rather than taking, as Nora was saying, rather than taking, because of being in such a healthy place, free from desires, very full, so wholesome, we can give. So this is a key part of that healthy state, that pure state, is free from desires. That's one element of purity. Another one we call being free from influence or detachment. And we know right now the world is in the grips of an influenza. And this word influenza is very close to this idea of being influenced. Influenza is a word we use for physical disease. influenced is a spiritual term. So I'm very colored or affected because I'm so attached, so invested in these things. So this idea of being very detached, I know the word independent was used at one point, but free from being influenced, this detachment is part of purity. And some don't like the word detached, so you can use the word free. But when we use the word free, very often, because we think of it in a limited way, we feel, okay, then I can do whatever I want, or I become free when I go on holidays, or I become free when I'm away from that aversive situation. But imagining being in jail, incarcerated, and feeling free, right? It's a very internal thing, right? This sense of not being affected by what's going on, that freedom, that detachment. So that's part of the pure state. And it means that I am not going to be colored or biased by what is happening. And this connects to the broken leg example earlier. When I am not detached, we're not able to perform what we use the term righteous actions or accurate or elevated, but actually healthy behavior is not possible. Healthy decisions are not possible. I might think it's a good logical thing to do, but it's actually not healthy because I'm not in a healthy place whilst making the decision. I'm very influenced. And if I make the decision in that influenced state, it creates consequences. And those consequences might show up in a physical way, such as a broken leg. So that broken leg doesn't happen for no reason whatsoever, right? It's connected to something that happened earlier, the type of behavior I engaged in earlier, because of spiritually not being in a healthy place. So how to take things back to the seed. And the last aspect, which I know Jima spoke of very beautifully this morning, is self-respect or self-worth. This is the other sign of purity, is that self-respect. And I feel self-respect is the cornerstone of all three forms of health within the self, in relationships, and in the world. Is when a soul has that self-respect, that deep, deep experience of their own worth, which is independent of anything on this physical plane, this planet. It's something within themselves. And it's because really of being able to honor their core values consistently, that self-respect is sustained. We actually start with self-respect. That's our innate state. But we gamble it away, if you will. We lose it because we start to act against our core values. We compromise ourselves. This is how we slowly, slowly lose that self-respect. So the self-respect is huge to really remember or recognize again our original state of self-worth. And if you're even sitting here now thinking about it, you can start to contrast different scenarios. You know, taking scenario number one, someone comes up to you and out of the blue, they insult you. Now you could say, well, I need to know why they're insulting me. I mean, they're just coming up. Yeah, they just out of for no reason whatsoever. You're in the supermarket and they yell at you. How would someone without self-respect behave? And how would someone with self-respect behave? Is there a difference between the two? Nora, did you want to take a run at this?
I feel someone without self-respect, it doesn't matter what situation it is. It'll be something I always think about the police officer. If you're in the presence of a police officer, you always feel guilty, like you've done something. But why I was sharing about that piece was some with self-respect, you would actually be thinking about the other person, kind of like, I wonder what they're going through. But I think that's why I was thinking of the contrast, because you just take everything personally, no matter what it is. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with you, it seems to distort inside your head. But it's back to the whole value thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when there is that self-respect, again, that's a very full state. There's always that feeling of, how can I support you? I'm fine. How can I support you in whatever you're going? So there's a real royalty to how that soul conducts themselves. So that's that healthy state. And that's actually our original state. When something is pure and whole, that's how we start. Originally, we are in that very healthy state of free and full and self-respect. Yeah. The purity and healthy? Mm. Oh, okay. Yeah. Right, right. So Nora's just talking about, is there a connection between the three states in a very natural way? So you don't have to break it down. They would happen very naturally. If that self-respect is there, then I wouldn't be prone to being influenced because I'm not needy, right? So the neediness, right? That the one thing, you know, we often talk about this, that what the soul wants more than anything is love and regard. More than anything, that's what's motivating us, that seeking of value, which we call love and regard. And if I have an internally generating supply of it, of self-love, self-respect, then I will not be seeking it. But if I don't, I start to become, you know, like a little animal. Its receptors are constantly looking, where can I get it? Where can I get it, right? Looking for, and the moment that there's something over there, I become very sensitive to that as a source. I'm very deeply influenced by that source, very deeply influenced. I'm also influenced by things which tend to feel like they are undermining my love and regard. So now I'm very deeply influenced because now I'm so oriented out there for love and regard. And of course, I'm very needy. Where can I get it? Where can I get it? Right? Everything. And we say, no, it's natural. Actually, it's not. It's not natural to need someone to say, I love you 100 times a day. It's not natural. They shouldn't have to say it at all. I mean, it's nice, but you don't have to need to hear it to feel okay, right? So when I have this internally generating supply, now if we're in a healthy world where everyone has their internal stock of purity, of love and regard, then there's that natural, the atmosphere is filled with love and regard. It's like rich, it's raining love and regard. So no one is going to ever have to say, I love you. It's just going to be there all the time. So it won't even enter our minds to say it. So I don't know if that, I sort of wandered off there. The unhealthy stage, I think, which everyone talked about, but which, you know, we talk about in Raj Yoga, the unhealthy state, when I am spiritually in a state of dis-ease, is always starting from the same place. If self-respect is the spiritual commodity, which it's really simple, we'll look at how to get that healthy state back, then the opposite would be that lack of self-respect, which we call arrogance or ego, and all of its friends that it uses to support itself, that it sort of hires, which is the attachment and the greed and the fear and the stress and the worry, the desire, the anger, the righteousness. All of these things are signs, the reactivity, the insecurity, the doubt, the mistrust, all of it are products of that impure state. So how do we get into that pure state? How do we heal the self? And, you know, it's, of course, I'm sure you all know the answer. When we're talking about spirituality, that's a really deep, deep level the operation needs to happen on. So there's two things we're going to need if we're going into a healing operation. One is to get into the operating room, and the other is a surgeon. Right? So these are really, if we're really like, I think, someone described the world itself as just on its, taking its last breaths. And, depending where you are in the world, some who are in very dire parts of the world are quite aware of that. But, we're sitting here comfortably using technology, having a conversation. So we may not be aware of how dire the situation is. And I often compare it to the Titanic. Those in the boiler room, oh, they know what's going on. They know what's going down. But those in the dining room, music's still playing, and they're eating. They're like, oh, everything's fine. So where are we in that recognition? So a major surgery is required. Really, the world needs a new life, an injection of a new life. And that will start within each of us. So what does it mean to get into the operating room? What is that operating room, and who is the surgeon? And such that I can become healthy again. And, even just starting with the operating room, recognizing where I need to get to for this operation. I always think of silence as the operating room. Silence always feels like the operating room. And when we say silence, I mean, it's probably helpful to be in a physically quiet place, but that's actually not the silence that we're referring to. Silence is a place where truth can be experienced. And so this points to what state do I need to be in order to access that truth, that silence. And, so often if you've taken the course, we talk about this so much, the idea of I need to be soul conscious. I'm a point of light in the center of the forehead, etc. But we're talking about I need to massively reframe my sense of self. Really experience the truth. And talk about overuse injury. We have been thinking of ourselves as a body, using this word mine in a very specific way for so long. It's become the default setting. We don't even have to make effort anymore. Can you imagine a time when it might have taken some effort to think you're the body, or some effort to remember, oh yeah, that's my child. It's effortless now. It's absolutely effortless. An effort to cry. Okay, I know that feeling, actually. I know Nora's nodding too. I've been in a situation where you're at a funeral service or something, everyone's crying around you, and you think, oh, they're going to think I'm a monster if I don't cry. So you're, oh. It's not because you're not aware of what's going on or you don't care. You're just having a different response, right? But imagine a time when it was effortless to experience yourself to be a soul, not this body. It was effortless to realize that you don't die. There was no fear of this thing. There was no mention of the word death. The number one cause of dying is thinking that you're the body. That is actually the only cause of death, is thinking that you're the body. Right? And imagine a time where it's like, in fact, it's very interesting for very small children, unless they had a trauma in their previous birth, but most small children don't even think of death. They're just not thinking about it at all. It's just not on their radar. So imagine with that pure state. So imagine these things that we think now are just facts of life, we actually think are truth, and they're not. Right? It's all based on being so mired in physicality. So these two words, I and mine, have to be reframed in order to get into that operating room of silence, that I am this eternal being, which means I can't be the body, because the body in this current state is not eternal. You know, and even as I look at this face right now, I know it's different, different shape. The matter is in a different configuration than it was, say, 30, 40 years ago. Right? So we say it's aging of the body. Matter is changing, and eventually its form will change completely. I will not be able to be accommodated in it anymore. So it will become what we call non-living again. So this idea that I am eternal, I'm life, energy, and I am housed in this body for a temporary period of time. So I am not the body. Now, if I'm not the body, then all the things I thought were mine relative to this body, they're no longer mine. They belong to the body, the story of the body, but not to me. So my mom, my dad, my house, my job, everything, it all belongs to the story of this body that's named Judy, but not to me, right? I'm only in here temporarily. And so it's a very interesting exercise, even with that language. If you think about it to yourself right now, just have that thought. You'll have to fill in the blanks. The name of this body is, in your case, you know, it might be Jackie or Raj. That's the name of this body. But my name is Atma, soul. That's it. Right? Pretty confusing in a crowd, isn't it? So to really experience this incredible wonder of the self, I am this eternal being. I am life itself. And it's amazing how all the expansion complexity immediately shrinks into a single point of what's most important. That is preparing myself. I'm thinking a lot about when I had to take Nora to the hospital. She had a surgery. And, you know, it was really, there was a couple of scenes that really struck me. One was when we were checking her in. And the attendant looked at us and said, "Are you two sisters?" The reason I'm laughing is because we physically don't look alike at all. So I don't know where that came from. But yeah, you know, but the other point was that she could not take anything with her. Like she had to give me everything, all of her belongings she had to give to me, including, I think, your contacts, right? You kept your contacts with you. Where'd you hide them? Oh, they were disposable, okay. But really nothing, stripped of everything in order to have that operation. Everything that she thought was hers, she had to give away. We say renounce. So this massive experience, not intellectual, but to really realize, oh my goodness, I'm not this body, right? It's like, and I don't know how we ever think we are this body, because we don't even know how it works. Really. Like, is there a gazillion things going on in it right now, and I haven't got a clue. I really, it's a wonder. I'm not just devaluing the body or trying to reject it. I know it's incredible. It's just not me, right? To really have that, and what is me is remarkable, because this body becomes living when I'm in it. The heart beats, the lungs working while I'm in it. The moment that I leave it, it becomes what we call a corpse. So to really experience the truth, who I am, and therefore what is mine? Well, nothing here. I can't own other people. It's kind of a strange concept to own other people. even before coming into this study, I always twitch a little when someone would say, "And this is my husband." I always twitch a little rather than "this is Greg," or whatever. The level of ownership, because that phrase, "my husband," was so loaded. It's not just trying to explain the relationship, but the ownership, the expectations, the attachment, the need, it all was compressed into that little introduction. So this idea that I can't own anything, it's not that I'm rejecting anything. I'm just being very truthful of my relationship with everything. It's all temporary. It's wonderful when I'm in the presence of people or resources. Wonderful. But I know that it's temporary. It comes and it goes, right? And I was sharing with the soul the other day, we have here a sewing machine that I don't know is 30, 40 years old, and it's still working. And I was sharing with the owner of the machine, the one who gave the machine, I was saying, yeah, no, that sewing machine still works. I said, they just don't make things the way they used to. I'm just going, yeah, that's true. Right? It's just as we move through time and move further and further away from the value of the self, even our resources become less and less valuable, more and more disposable. So we know everything's temporary. It comes and it goes. So once I release this, and when I say release this I and mine, it doesn't mean I'm left with nothing. I replace it with the truth. I am a soul, and what is mine is only the things that I carry within me, the soul. My character, my qualities, my memories. These are the things that I carry with me. Once I get to that point, I'm now kind of entering the operating room, that silence. And the surgeon in that room, we refer to often in the West as God. I love this term, eternal surgeon or the eternal healer, that we're going to come into the care in that silence, into the care of a being who is ever healthy. You know, even if I look at the physical realm, I don't know how many times I'm with a doctor or something and I feel they're not even healthy. It's kind of weird going to someone and they themselves are not in a healthy state. Very often when I see my GP now, I'd say 10% of our visit is about what's going on with this body. The other 90% are making sure she's okay. You know, so nothing is healthy here. We can't help each other. So to go in front of a being who is ever healthy, a being who is always in that pure, whole state, you know, and if we're trying to understand what is that being like, what is God really like, just think of a being who is pure, whole, healthy. You know, given what we discussed, so there's no ego, there's no greed, there's no anger, there's no expectations, there's no righteousness, there's none of that, no trace of that in that being. But there is that fullness, that benevolence, that bestowing, that respect, and therefore able to give deep respect. So to come in front of such a being, a really healthy being, and there are two tools of operating on us, our spiritual wisdom and spiritual power. That's it. You know, both are non-physical. So that being constantly, you know, whenever they're operating in an operating room, they've got their scalpel or their surgical, and then they're constantly flushing it with water. Keep it clean, keep it clean, right? They're always flushing the wound with water while they're operating on it. And that's really how the eternal surgeon works as well. Constantly flushing through the water of knowledge, these unlimited ideas, this big picture, the big perspectives, constantly flushing it through. So no waste or germs or bacteria comes into the mind. And then always that surgery of cutting away what is false, dissolving what is false, what is not true. This idea that, already some aspects were brought up by you, this idea that I should be comparing myself to someone else when each of us is one of a kind. It makes no sense whatsoever, but it is a deep, deep habit. Need to remove that. Remove it by replacing it with an understanding of my own unique value, incomparable. Do I really know myself in that unique way? Or another very, very deep problem within the self, of course, is that self-respect, which is so connected. That faith, the trust in the self is so undermined. So these really unhealthy illusions that have crept in, gently, gently dissolving them. A big part of that, the overuse injury, is that we have been behaving in conflict with our true nature. And we keep a perfect record inside of all of these little misdemeanors, and they sit in our conscience. And so the eternal healer, why they have to use wisdom, is they have to help us to understand that it was not our fault. We do have to take responsibility that we did the best that we could given the understanding we had, given the state we were in. We did the best we could. That needs to be, really, really imbibed deeply. There's so many plot lines in literature of this idea of redemption. And it's a very deep, this is why God's remembered as the bestower of salvation. It's a very deep issue within the soul. It's like having a pinched nerve physically. It's constantly, the conscience constantly pressing on us. So we look together and calm, cool, collected outside, but internally, always that very unhealthy state. And so, this eternal healer, the most sweetest, loving thing that being does is he actually acknowledges the elephant in the room, that your conscience is biting you, and he knows how to address that such that we can return back to a healthy state. So I don't know if we have to have a part 2 on this because we're out of time. But I do want to leave a little time for if there's anything you want to share or any questions you might have.
I'll just try to share quickly.
No problem, Jackie.
Interesting that this is a topic that we're discussing, because this has been what I've lived this summer with my eldest son. There's my son, but yeah, very interesting. And just
other lovely soul in your life.
And being a young person, so 19, just turned 20, and learning and maturing, but really looking out, I see how restless he's becoming, and how look at all that's happening. I have no control what's happening to me, and frustration. And so having the discussions with him throughout the summer of not to blame, not to put that blame out there, to say what, this person, this whatever situation is making me angry, making me mad, making me feel guilty, and taking that ownership. And anyway, so that, I'll try to make the story short, but so going back and forth to him then saying to me, well, okay, but putting it back on me, just pointing out to me that I don't do that good of a job of what I'm trying to tell him he should do. So I said, I'm trying. I'm just trying to share with you that and I think these are your words to me one time, Judy, is not to give the control. Do you want to give the control to the other person or to the situation? When it's something that's coming from you, you're giving that control away. You're saying they're making me mad or guilty, or you're giving that away. You're saying I have no control, and I'm just bouncing around being this victim, and that hit home for him. So then, anyway, so this kind of continued through the summer, and he kept me in check. So, and I kept trying to keep him in check. Anyways, as we two last points. One thing he brought up, which was very good, which was we talked about the desires and the expectations, and he said, well, then I just be content with what I am, but I'm trying to become, he's trying to grow and become someone and become something. And he's got his, his goals, and he really does have very high expectations and desires coming between education and his sports. And I said, but I tried to look at it as, well, you still are being comfortable and being confident and respecting yourself. And that doesn't mean you don't continue to have your goals and keep trying for them. So that's one for him to work to find, and for all of us, I think, to really find that level of, I'm comfortable. I still work at it without the expectation or desire, because there's, you are striving for something, but to keep that feeling of satisfaction and respect for yourself as you move forward. But anyways, then to end it off, he's now gone. He's moved away for his sport and for his hockey, but he said into the end of the summer, okay, Mom, will you remind me? Will you point out to me when I'm doing this? Because he's at that point where he's not sure when he's putting the blame on others all the time, and he doesn't want to do that. So I said, okay, I'll do that for you. Do that for me. We have to learn to do that for ourselves, but for now we can help each other. And so it was very interesting, the whole conversation, and the whole, how it was, okay, we at least came to the point of, we're going to try, we can do this. And yeah, good. Anyways, it was a very good topic today for me. So I just wanted to share that.
That's beautiful, when it takes a lot of humility to give someone permission to let me know when it's called, it's that overuse injury of blaming others. Let me know when I'm doing that, because I'm hurting myself, right? I'm taking away a very healthy state, self-empowered state. So amazing sharing, very beautiful. We are allowed one desire in spirituality, and it's the desire to become pure. And, some have mixed feelings about that word, so I often will use either greatness of the human spirit to realize that, or our highest potential, because they're all the same thing, right? So, and when someone realizes their potential at a spiritual level, it's amazing. They can really do anything, right? Hockey, cooking, whatever. They can apply that potential to anything, but they're not dependent on success in that endeavor to feel good about themselves. So that realizing our highest potential, becoming pure, is the one desire you get, one pure desire. Okay, we have a question coming in. I'm going to try and catch it. Okay, first off, before you go, I think Raj is about to speak. Can you hold that question? Okay, Raj, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you, Sister Judy, bringing up about the self-respect thing when you mentioned that, if somebody all of a sudden yells at you, and then, the same thing happened. My father was kind of mad at me and my brother a lot yesterday because he has huge indigestion issues and he thinks, these people can't fix it. So we were bitter since yesterday because he was kind of mean, and then we were bitter, like, till you kind of mentioned that, like, till we got even with him, no, we can fine. But then you mentioned, if we were in self-respect, we would have thought, we know that he's suffering, so we would have thought about him, how much he's suffering. That's why he's mean to us, instead of, because he was lashing out on us, and then we're kind of trying to get even or something, right? So it shows, we forgot the self-respect. So instead of, feeling him how he feels, we're trying to be, protect ourselves, defend ourselves.
Yeah, it's about me rather than about him. No, it's a really good point you brought up, Raj.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, and you've reminded me that when we are in that pure state, that self-respect state, we actually can not just keep the secrets of others, but also know the secrets of others without needing to know their story. But we know that if someone is lashing out or is reacting, it might be a physical pain, but it could be deeper, it could be fear, any number of things quite deep that they are lashing out from. I know I was once in a scenario where, yes, the soul suddenly got quite upset with me and blamed me for something that I knew I had not done. Everyone knew I had not done. But I remember that feeling of, and we had this point in a class earlier, and it went so deeply into me. I should read it to you. Oh, it's upstairs. These signals from Daduji's life. But it talked about when you see someone doing something wrong, and everyone knows it's wrong, and it's clear that it's wrong, but they don't know it's wrong, in the sense that it's quite damaging. What should you do? Should you go up to them and say, what you're doing is wrong? Is that what you should do? And what it suggests in the class, you say, I'm sorry. As if you made a mistake. You go up to them and say, I'm sorry. And it's like this beautiful injection of care and respect that will help that soul, create a forum for that soul to become unlocked, to come out of that difficult place they're in. So how can I create spaces where other souls feel okay? When I react, I kind of keep everybody stuck, including myself. So it's a tall order. I mean, when we heard this signal, I was like, wow, that is one powerful, self-respectful soul. And I've seen it. I've seen these souls do that. But, you know, this idea of being able to create healthy forums for others, and you begin to become sensitive to what might be going on inside that soul. You know, they might be afraid or not sure what's going on or confused or insecure, whatever the case may be. So then you're able to kind of speak to that. But yeah, this is the very high destination we're given, and it means that I need to be in a very healthy, self-respectful place. Yeah, so great sharing. Nora was sharing about God's love. Yeah.
In the context of healing, then does God's love have to be very specific in its function so that it enables me to be able to then have that love for myself? Because it seems to be a gray zone in terms of, yes, ultimate is God's love, but anyone's love can cause one to become dependent. But God's love ideally should enable me to be able to become one who can stand on my feet.
This is a really, so we mentioned the two tools that the healer uses, and healing's probably the highest form of love, are wisdom and power. These are the two forms of God's love. But I've noticed that, because I was just at the dentist the other day, so I noticed the first thing she asked me as she got ready to attack the teeth, she asked me, are you comfortable? And that's a form of love. It's not the form that's going to heal the soul, but it's going to make it possible for the soul to get into that state where they can be healed. So as you go into that surgery, you know, they always ask you, are you comfortable? And we've confused that comfort with God's love. It is a preparatory love for God's love, right? So, you know, we want souls to come into these spiritual spaces that they're very comfortable. They, you know, we have certain ways of showing that love on a surface level almost, if you will. But that's not the operation itself. That's not the true form of the healer's love. It's that wisdom and power, because it's to get us to that pure state where we are independent, able to stand on our feet. So ultimately, I mean, we can keep saying, are you comfortable? No, I'm not quite comfortable yet. Okay, it's okay. We won't start the operation yet. We'll keep working on just making you comfortable. Are you comfortable yet? No, I'm not comfortable yet. Okay, well, I can't get to that operation. It's okay, right? So we spend a lot of time making sure souls are comfortable. And we've received many classes on this point, actually, of you're very good at showing love. Can you now give them some power? Can you get on with the operation? So, you know, love is such a multifaceted thing, and they're all important. Even making sure the soul is comfortable is important. But it's like, okay, I'm comfortable now. Is the operation over? No, it hasn't even started. You know, so I can't confuse that love with that deep, deep love. And we talked this morning about this high form of love to educate, to share that wisdom so I can understand myself. I mean, that's the gift Jackie is trying to give to that soul, right? Is that understanding. It's a very high form of love. And I applaud you as a mother, because you could certainly keep the soul stuck by just saying, yeah, those people are just not acting right. They should be doing this, you're absolutely right, but you don't. Instead, you say, yeah, but do you want to be a victim of what they're doing? Do you want them to control you? That's a very high form of love that's very uncomfortable for souls to take. or specifically for their ego to take, which doesn't even belong to them, right? So how to get, so often the comfortable form of love, the love that, makes souls right, is building up trust in relationship. So the example Jackie was giving, I'm not sure which side you're on, because there's definitely the relationship with that soul, but you're also, they see you as their mother. And that means you're not cool. So it's kind of going for you and against you. Like, oh, there she goes again. Oh, right. So I'm not sure which way it's working for you. But they do trust you. They do trust you, and that's definitely working for you. So that comfort is there that may not be there with someone else. And they're getting to know, they're getting comfortable with you as a spiritual student. Right? So that also takes time. They're seeing you as a spiritual student. They'll become more comfortable as they see the successes you are experiencing in your study. They become more trusting, more comfortable. So you can see that happening. So relationship is super important in creating that comfort. So when the eternal healer comes in, they kind of show up and say, what relationship would you like me to be? Do you want me to be your mother, your friend, your confidant? I'll be whatever you want. Because that relationship's so important. But then they come in with the relationship, right? I am your father. So how to, I am your healer. I am the purifier. This is the main role of the healer. I am here to make you healthy, pure. This is their main function. So all these different relationships just to get me to that surgery. I am here to purify you, which is such a beautiful thing to do for us, for souls. So we are so over time. So over time. We may have to have a part 2 next week. I don't know. I'm not sure what the topic is, but I had actually thought, we can make it whatever we want, but I had actually had the thought that we should take one aspect and have it for the entire month, because I didn't, sorry. Oh, okay. Anyways, we'll see what happens next week. If you don't show up, then I know it's a dud, and you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going on forever here. So we don't, it's true, we have editing power. We don't have to upload the whole video. Do you think it's useful for others to have it in its entirety with your sharing as well? I think it is, but what do you think? If you're okay with it, because I'm sitting here saying, Jackie, Raj, you have no.
I'm okay with the sharing. I like my own, of you sharing mine. And I personally think that it's really beneficial. I enjoy hearing other people sharing. I really learn from everybody else. So I really like to hear their sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Jima's okay. Raj, you're okay? All right. Thank you. They would have gone to sleep by now. This is a 75-minute video. So they probably, turned it off long ago. But anyways, I have appreciated the conversation, and I look forward to the next one. A reminder that we have interview with the Raj Yogi Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's another chance. I know it's on YouTube, but it's a chance to give your input as well through chat. We've had a question come from a soul regarding karma. So I think sometime on Thursday, we'll probably explore that a little bit more. So because we've run out of time, you will have to use your own commentary to take yourself into that operating room and be with the eternal healer. And you have about a minute to do it. So here we go. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining and for your contributions. Really, really lovely conversation. Until we meet again. Om Shanti.